The morning sun of Kepler-7 painted the sky in soft purple hues as Zara stepped onto the porch of their small house. She watched her husband Tom kneeling in their garden, carefully planting seeds in neat rows. His movements were slow and deliberate, so different from the quick reflexes of her own Villani people. Zara's large eyes could see details that would escape most beings. She noticed how Tom's hands trembled slightly from fatigue after just 30 minutes of work. Her own people could labor for hours without showing such weakness. She shook her head with gentle amusement and walked over to him. "You should rest," she said, her voice carrying the musical tone common to all Villani. "Your species requires more recovery time than most." Tom looked up and smiled. Sweat beaded on his forehead despite the cool morning air. "Almost done with this section," he replied, wiping his brow. "Want to get these vegetables planted before the weather changes." Zara studied his face. Tom was 35 years old, which made him middle-aged by human standards. His brown hair was already showing gray streaks, and lines had formed around his eyes. Her own species aged much more slowly. At equivalent development, she would live 3 times longer than he would. "I still do not understand why you prefer manual labor," she said, settling onto the grass beside him. "The automated systems could plant this entire garden in minutes." "I like working with my hands," Tom said simply. "Makes me feel connected to the earth." This was so typically human, Zara thought. Their emotional need for physical contact with their environment often overrode logical efficiency. It was one of the traits that had attracted her to Tom when they first met at the Colonial Research Station. She had been studying atmospheric composition when he arrived as part of a maintenance crew. While her Villani colleagues dismissed humans as slow and primitive, Zara found Tom's quiet nature refreshing. He never boasted about superior abilities or competed for status like other species did. He simply did his work and went home. Their courtship had been gentle and patient. Tom seemed content to move at whatever pace made her comfortable. When her family expressed concern about her choice to marry outside their species, Tom never pressured her to defend their relationship. He simply continued being himself. Now, 3 years into their marriage, Zara had grown accustomed to the rhythms of human life. Tom woke early but moved slowly in the mornings. He ate 3 meals a day instead of the single large meal preferred by Villani. He required 8 hours of sleep each night, far more than her own 4-hour cycle. "The Hendersons sent another message," Tom said, moving to the next row. "They want to know if we can watch their farm while they visit New Terra." "Of course," Zara replied. "Though I am surprised they trust us with their livestock. My understanding of animal care is limited." Tom chuckled. "That's what I'm here for. Humans have been raising animals for thousands of years." "Yes, your species does have extensive agricultural history," Zara agreed. She had studied human development as part of her xenobiology research. Humans had spent most of their existence as farmers and herders before developing space travel. It explained their attachment to manual labor. A soft chime from inside the house indicated an incoming communication. Zara's enhanced hearing picked it up immediately, but Tom continued working until she touched his shoulder. "Message arriving," she said. "Probably just Colonial Administration," Tom replied, not looking up from his planting. "You can handle it." Zara walked inside and activated the communication panel. Instead of the usual administrative update, she found herself looking at Commander Wren of the Colonial Defense Force. The Altoiran officer's blue-scaled face showed obvious concern. "Mrs. Zara, I need to speak with all colonists immediately. Please gather your husband and report to the community center within 1 hour." "Is there a problem, Commander?" "I will explain everything at the briefing. Please do not delay." The transmission ended, leaving Zara staring at the blank screen. In 3 years on Kepler-7, she had never seen Commander Wren look worried. The Altoiran species was known for their calm demeanor under pressure. She returned to the garden where Tom was finishing the last row. "We have been summoned to the community center." Commander Wren seemed disturbed about something. Tom stood slowly, brushing dirt from his knees. Probably just another safety drill. The defense force likes to keep everyone sharp. Perhaps, Zara said, though her scientific mind noted several inconsistencies. Safety drills were scheduled weeks in advance. Commander Wren had never personally delivered such messages. And his emotional state suggested genuine urgency. They walked to the community center along with other colonists emerging from their homes. Kepler-7 housed approximately 800 beings from 12 different species. Most had come seeking the peaceful life that agricultural colonies offered. The community center filled quickly. Zara recognized faces from various species, the tall Zenthri with their elegant necks, stocky Dulgan miners, graceful Sylvani dancers, and many others. Humans made up only about 10% of the population. Commander Wren took the stage, his usual composed demeanor replaced by visible tension. Citizens of Kepler-7, I have received disturbing intelligence from Central Command. A Ravok war fleet has been detected moving through this sector. Murmurs of concern rippled through the crowd. The Ravok were known throughout the galaxy as aggressive expansionists. Their insectoid warriors showed no mercy to civilian populations. Current projections suggest they will reach our system in approximately 72 hours, Commander Wren continued. While their target may not be Kepler-7, we must prepare for the possibility of attack. A Zenthri citizen stood up. What are our defensive capabilities, Commander? We have standard planetary shields and a small patrol fleet of 12 vessels. Against a full Ravok war fleet, our chances would be limited. Zara felt a chill run through her slim frame. She glanced at Tom, expecting to see the fear that was spreading through the crowd. Instead, his face showed only thoughtful concentration, as if he were solving a complex puzzle. Evacuation protocols are being prepared, Commander Wren announced. Transport ships will begin arriving tomorrow to remove non-essential personnel. Priority will be given to families with young offspring and elderly citizens. What about our homes? Called out a Dulgan farmer. Our livestock. We will do everything possible to defend the colony, but lives must take priority over property. The briefing continued with technical details about evacuation procedures and emergency protocols. Zara tried to focus, but her mind kept wandering to their small house and garden. They had built a life here together. The thought of abandoning everything felt overwhelming. Tom remained quiet throughout the presentation. When Commander Wren finished speaking, most colonists stayed to ask questions or discuss plans with neighbors. Tom stood immediately. We should go home, he said simply. Do you not wish to learn more about the evacuation procedures? Zara asked. I heard everything important. No point in staying for the panic. As they walked home, Zara noticed Tom's behavior becoming increasingly unusual. His usual relaxed pace had been replaced by purposeful strides. His eyes moved constantly, scanning their surroundings with new intensity. You seem different, she observed. Just thinking about preparations we need to make, he replied. At home, Tom went immediately to their storage shed while Zara prepared their evening meal. She could hear him moving boxes and equipment, though she could not imagine what preparations he thought necessary. When he finally joined her for dinner, his hands showed fresh dirt under the fingernails despite having washed them. Zara's enhanced vision also detected something else, small metal filings that suggested he had been working with tools. What were you doing in the shed? She asked. Just organizing supplies. Want to make sure we have everything ready if we need to leave quickly. Zara accepted this explanation, though it seemed insufficient given the amount of noise she had heard. After dinner, Tom disappeared into the basement workshop he had set up when they first moved to the house. She had always respected his privacy in that space. Tom claimed he used it for hobby projects and preferred to work alone. Zara assumed it was another human quirk, like their need for personal space and quiet time. Tonight, however, the sounds from the basement were different. Instead of the gentle tapping and scraping she usually heard, there were sharp metallic clicks and the hum of electronic equipment. Tom had never mentioned owning such devices. Around midnight, Zara decided to check on him. She descended the basement stairs quietly, intending to suggest he get some rest. The door to his workshop stood slightly open, allowing her to see inside. Tom sat hunched over a complex electronic display she had never seen before. Multiple screens showed technical readouts and star charts. His fingers moved rapidly over input devices with a precision that surprised her. For someone who usually moved so slowly and deliberately, his current speed seemed almost impossible. Zara watched for several minutes, trying to understand what she was seeing. Tom's face showed intense concentration as he manipulated data streams and analyzed complex patterns. This was not the simple hobby work she had imagined. She started to call out to him, then stopped. Something about his posture and movements suggested he should not be interrupted. Instead, she quietly returned upstairs. Sleep did not come easily. Zara's mind raced with questions about Tom's mysterious equipment and unusual behavior. In 3 years of marriage, she thought she knew everything about her gentle husband. Apparently, she had been wrong. The next morning, Tom emerged from the basement looking exhausted but determined. His eyes showed the same sharp focus she had observed the night before. "The evacuation ships will begin arriving this afternoon," he said over breakfast. "You should start packing your important belongings." "What about you?" Zara asked. "Will you not be preparing as well?" Tom was quiet for a long moment. "I have some things to take care of first. Projects I need to finish." "What kind of projects could be more important than our safety?" "Trust me," he said, meeting her eyes with surprising intensity. "Just pack your things and be ready to leave if necessary." After breakfast, Tom returned to the basement. Zara could hear him working with increased urgency. The electronic humming grew louder, accompanied by sounds she could not identify. She tried to focus on packing, but her scientific curiosity demanded answers. Tom was hiding something significant, and his behavior suggested it might be related to their current crisis. Why would a simple maintenance worker have advanced electronic equipment? What projects required such secrecy? As the day progressed, evacuation ships began landing at the spaceport. Families with children were among the first to board, followed by elderly citizens and those from species considered most vulnerable to Ravik attack. Tom never emerged from the basement to watch the departures. Zara found herself torn between concern for her husband and the growing certainty that she did not really know him at all. Evening brought news that the Ravik fleet had accelerated their approach. Commander Wren estimated they would arrive within 48 hours instead of 72. The evacuation efforts became more urgent. Still, Tom remained in his workshop, and Zara began to wonder if her ordinary human husband might not be ordinary at all. The emergency sirens began wailing at 3 in the morning, their harsh sound cutting through the peaceful night on Kepler 7. Zara jolted awake in bed, her Villani reflexes immediately bringing her to full alertness. Beside her, Tom was already sitting up, completely awake despite having been deep in sleep moments before. "They are early," he said quietly, his voice carrying none of the grogginess she expected. Through their bedroom window, Zara could see flashes of light in the sky. The planetary defense grid was firing at targets beyond the atmosphere. Her enhanced vision detected multiple energy signatures moving in coordinated patterns above the colony. "The Ravik fleet," she whispered, fear creeping into her voice. Tom was already out of bed, pulling on clothes with swift, efficient movements. "Get dressed. We need to move fast." Zara had never seen her husband move with such purpose. His usual slow, careful actions had been replaced by quick precision. Even in the dim light, he seemed to know exactly where everything was located. "Where are we going?" she asked, struggling to keep up with his sudden energy. "Community center first. Commander Wren will need accurate information about what they are facing." "How could you possibly know what information he needs?" Tom paused in the doorway, and for a moment his expression softened. There are things about me I have never told you. Things I hoped I would never need to tell you. Before Zara could ask what he meant, another series of explosions lit up the sky. The planetary shields were taking heavy damage. Tom's face hardened again. Explanations later. Right now, we need to help these people survive. They rushed outside to find chaos in the streets. Colonists from all species were running toward emergency shelters or the spaceport. Parents carried crying children while elderly citizens struggled to keep pace. The organized evacuation plans from the previous day had collapsed into panic. Tom stopped in the middle of the street, his eyes scanning the confused crowd with calculating intensity. Zara watched him process the scene with a speed that seemed impossible for human cognition. The evacuation routes are wrong, he said suddenly. What do you mean? Look at the attack pattern. Tom pointed to the sky where Ravik fighters were diving toward specific targets. They are hitting the main roads first. Anyone using the planned evacuation routes will be trapped. Zara tried to follow his analysis but could not see the patterns he described. The attack looked random to her, just chaos and destruction. Tom began moving through the crowd, his voice carrying over the noise with surprising authority. Everyone listen. The main roads are compromised. We need to use the farming paths on the east side of town. A Zenthari citizen looked at him with confusion. Who are you to give orders? We must follow official procedures. The official procedures will get you caught in the open when those fighters make their next pass. Look at their flight pattern. They are driving people toward specific areas. Commander Ren's voice crackled through the emergency communication system. All civilians report to designated shelter points immediately. Do not deviate from assigned routes. Tom pulled out a small device Zara had never seen before. It looked like a military communication unit, far more advanced than civilian equipment. He spoke into it with crisp efficiency. Commander Ren, this is Tom Hayes. The enemy is using funnel tactics. Your evacuation routes are compromised. Static filled the air for several seconds before Ren's voice responded. Hayes. How do you have access to military channels? That is not important right now. You need to redirect civilian traffic through sectors 7 and 9. The eastern farming roads will provide cover from aerial assault. I cannot change established protocols based on unverified analysis. Tom's jaw tightened. Zara could see frustration building in his expression, but when he spoke again, his voice remained controlled. Commander, how many attack runs have the fighters completed? 3 confirmed passes targeting infrastructure. What was their flight pattern? Did they approach from the north and circle south before climbing to altitude? Another pause. How could you know that? Because it is standard Ravik funnel doctrine. They are herding your civilians into prepared areas. Check your tactical displays for energy buildup in sectors 4 and 6. Zara watched her husband with growing amazement. His knowledge of military tactics seemed impossible for a civilian maintenance worker. How could he analyze enemy behavior with such accuracy? Commander Ren's voice returned, this time with obvious concern. Confirmed. Large energy signatures detected in both sectors. Recommend immediate rerouting of evacuation traffic. Already working on it, Tom replied. He had somehow taken charge of the crowd around them, directing families toward the eastern paths with calm authority. Other colonists were following his instructions without question. A group of young Dulgan males pushed through the crowd, moving against the evacuation flow. They carried improvised weapons and showed signs of aggressive excitement. Where are you going? Tom called out to them. To fight the invaders, their leader replied. We will not run like frightened children. Tom stepped into their path, his posture shifting into something Zara had never seen before. Despite being smaller than the Dulgan warriors, his presence somehow dominated the space. Combat training? He asked sharply. We are miners. We know how to handle explosives. Against aerial fighters? With handheld weapons? You will die in the first 30 seconds. The Dulgan leader bristled at the challenge. Human, you know nothing of warfare. Your species is weak and slow. Tom's expression did not change, but something cold flickered in his eyes. I know that Ravok fighters have sensor arrays that detect metal weapons from 2 kilometers away. I know their standard response to ground resistance is cluster munitions that leave nothing alive in a 50-meter radius. And I know that untrained fighters rushing into open ground against superior forces accomplish nothing except adding to the casualty count. The Dulgan stared at him with surprise. Tom's detailed knowledge of enemy capabilities was not something a civilian should possess. If you want to fight, then help me organize a proper defense. But rushing into suicide attacks helps no one. The sky erupted with new explosions as the planetary shields finally collapsed. Ravok dropships began descending toward the surface, their insectoid shapes clearly visible against the burning atmosphere. Tom activated his communication device again. Commander Wren, they are beginning ground deployment. What defensive positions do you have available? Military facilities are secured, but we have limited forces for area defense. I need access to your tactical network. Negative. Civilian access to military systems is not permitted. Tom was quiet for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice carried a different quality, harder and more formal. Commander, authorization code Delta 779er. Service number 2847 Alpha 6. The communication went silent. Zara stared at her husband, completely confused by what she had just heard. Military authorization codes. Service numbers. Tom had never mentioned any military background. Hayes, Commander Wren's voice returned, now with obvious respect. Why did you not identify yourself earlier? Because I retired for a reason. But circumstances have changed. Uploading tactical access now. What do you need? Tom's device lit up with complex displays showing troop positions, weapon placements, and real-time battle data. His eyes moved across the information with practiced ease. The Ravok are deploying in 3 primary zones, he said, his analysis flowing smoothly. Their pattern suggests they plan to secure the spaceport, the power generation facility, and the main communication array. Standard occupation protocol. Agreed. We have insufficient forces to defend all 3 locations. We do not need to defend them. We need to make them pay for taking them. Zara listened to the exchange with growing confusion and amazement. Her gentle husband was analyzing complex military situations with expertise that rivaled professional officers. His knowledge of enemy tactics seemed comprehensive and detailed. Around them, the evacuation was proceeding more smoothly under Tom's revised routing. Families moved quickly along the protected eastern paths while the Ravok fighters continued attacking the now empty main roads. Zara, Tom said, turning to her with serious eyes. I need you to help coordinate the civilian groups. Your scientific training makes you ideal for organizing complex logistics. I do not understand what is happening, she replied. Who are you? I am your husband, he said simply. Everything else can wait until we survive this. The first Ravok ground forces reached the outskirts of town. Through her enhanced vision, Zara could see their insectoid forms moving in precise formations. Each warrior stood nearly 3 meters tall, with armored carapaces and multiple weapon appendages. Tom studied the enemy positions through his tactical display. They are advancing more cautiously than expected. Someone is giving them good intelligence about human settlements. How can you tell? Standard Ravok doctrine calls for rapid assault on lightly defended targets. But they are taking time to probe for defensive positions. Either their commander is unusually careful, or they have detailed information about our capabilities. Zara realized that Tom was seeing patterns in enemy behavior that escaped everyone else, including trained military officers. His ability to analyze complex situations in real time seemed far beyond normal human capacity. Commander Wren, Tom spoke into his device. I recommend we let them take the primary objectives unopposed. Explain. If they encounter no resistance, they will advance to secure the secondary targets. That puts them in the open ground between zones, where we can hit them from multiple angles. You are suggesting we sacrifice our main defensive positions? I am suggesting we trade ground for tactical advantage. Ravik psychology favors direct confrontation. If we appear weak, they will overextend their forces. Zara watched her husband coordinate defensive strategies with the same calm efficiency he brought to gardening. The contrast was startling and impossible to reconcile with the man she thought she knew. The sound of approaching aircraft drew their attention skyward. More Ravik dropships were descending, but these carried heavier equipment and larger warrior units. Tom's expression grew grim as he analyzed the new arrivals. They are bringing in assault specialists. This is not a raid anymore. They plan to establish permanent occupation. What does that mean for the colonists? Zara asked. Tom met her eyes with an expression she had never seen before, hard and determined and somehow dangerous. It means the evacuation is over. Now we fight. The Ravik forces established their command post in the center of town as Tom had predicted. From their hidden position in the farming district, Zara watched through scopes as dozens of insectoid warriors moved with mechanical precision. Their chitinous armor gleamed in the morning light, and their multiple weapon arms tracked constantly for threats. Tom studied the enemy positions through his tactical display, his face showing intense concentration. Around them, a mixed group of colonists and defense force personnel waited for orders. What had started as a panicked evacuation had somehow transformed into an organized resistance. Status report, Commander Wren's voice crackled through the communication network. Enemy has secured primary objectives as expected, Tom replied. 3 command posts established, with approximately 200 warriors divided between locations. Our forces: 67 combat-capable personnel, plus 130 civilians with basic training. We are outnumbered but not outmaneuvered. Zara listened to the exchange with continuing amazement. Her husband spoke with the confidence of someone who had commanded similar situations many times before. Yet in 3 years of marriage, he had never mentioned any military experience. A young Alta-Iran soldier crawled up beside them. Sir, the enemy is requesting surrender terms for the civilian population. Tom's expression hardened. Standard Ravik procedure. They will collect information about our capabilities, then decide which colonists are useful as workers and which should be eliminated. What do we tell them? Nothing. Radio silence from all units. The soldier looked confused. Should we not attempt to negotiate for civilian lives? Negotiation with Ravik forces is meaningless, Tom said flatly. They view other species as either useful tools or obstacles to be removed. Our only option is to make continued occupation too expensive for them to maintain. Zara had never heard such cold calculation in her husband's voice. The gentle man who tended their garden with patient care had been replaced by someone who analyzed life and death with clinical precision. Movement in Sector 4, reported another voice over the communication network. Ravik patrol advancing towards civilian shelter areas. Tom activated his display and studied the developing situation. 20 warriors, standard search formation. They are looking for hidden populations. Recommend we intercept? Asked Commander Wren. Negative. Let them search the empty areas. We want them to believe most civilians escaped. But if they find the actual shelter locations? Tom was quiet for a moment, his eyes tracking enemy movements on multiple display screens. They will not find them. The shelters are positioned outside their search pattern. How can you be certain? Because Ravik tactical doctrine assumes other species think like they do. They search in straight lines and geometric patterns. Human defensive planning uses irregular positioning that confuses their sensors. Zara realized that Tom was not just analyzing enemy behavior, but actively predicting it based on deep knowledge of how different species approached warfare. His insights went far beyond anything taught in civilian education programs. The day progressed with careful maneuvering as Tom coordinated hit-and-run attacks against isolated Ravok patrols. Each engagement was brief and decisive, with human forces striking from unexpected angles before disappearing into prepared hiding spots. What amazed Zara most was watching Tom during the actual fighting. When the first battle began, she expected him to remain safely behind with other commanders. Instead, he grabbed a weapon and moved toward the combat zone. "Where are you going?" she called after him. "Forward observation position. I need to see their reaction patterns directly." Zara followed at a distance, using her enhanced vision to track his movements. What she saw defied everything she understood about human physical capabilities. The engagement lasted nearly 2 hours. Other species in their group showed obvious fatigue after the first 30 minutes of intense activity. Dulgan miners gasped for air, Alta'iran soldiers moved more slowly, and even the naturally agile Zentri began making coordination errors. Tom seemed to grow more focused and effective as the battle continued. His movements became sharper, his reflexes faster, and his tactical decisions more precise. While everyone else deteriorated under stress, he improved. During a brief pause in fighting, Zara approached Commander Wren. "Is this normal human behavior during combat?" The Alta'iran officer looked puzzled. "What do you mean?" "Tom seems to be getting stronger as the battle continues, while other fighters are becoming exhausted." Commander Wren studied Tom, who was currently analyzing enemy positions while simultaneously coordinating ammunition distribution. "I have never observed anything like it. Most species experience decreased performance during extended combat stress. But not humans. I do not know. Tom is the only human I have seen in actual battle conditions." As afternoon turned to evening, the Ravok forces began consolidating their positions. Tom gathered the resistance leaders around his tactical display to plan their next move. "They are pulling back to defensive positions around their communication array," he reported. "Standard procedure when facing unexpected resistance." "So we have succeeded in making them cautious," Commander Wren observed. "Caution is not enough. As long as they can communicate with their fleet, they will call for reinforcements. We need to eliminate their communication capability entirely." A Dulgan engineer studied the tactical display. "Their array is heavily defended. Any assault would face concentrated fire from multiple positions." "Agreed. Direct assault would fail against their defensive setup." "Then how do we proceed?" Tom was quiet for a long moment, his eyes focused on something beyond the tactical display. When he spoke, his voice carried a different quality than before. "Someone needs to get inside their perimeter and destroy the array from within. Close quarters infiltration, minimal equipment, no backup support." "That would be a suicide mission," Commander Wren said immediately. "No one could survive penetrating their defensive lines alone." "Not suicide. Difficult, but possible with the right approach." "What approach could succeed against such odds?" Tom met each of their eyes in turn. "Human approach." The silence stretched uncomfortably as the implications became clear. Tom was volunteering for a mission everyone else considered impossible. Zara felt cold fear spreading through her chest. "There must be another way." "There is not," Tom replied simply. Ravok defensive doctrine assumes attackers will use standard military tactics. They position their sensors and weapons to counter organized assault forces. A single infiltrator moving unpredictably can exploit gaps in their coverage. "But the risks," she began, "are acceptable compared to the alternative. If they establish permanent occupation, every colonist becomes either a slave or a casualty." Commander Wren looked deeply uncomfortable. "I cannot authorize such a mission. The probability of failure is too high." Tom's expression grew harder. "You are not authorizing it." "I am." "Under what authority?" "My own." Tom began gathering equipment with swift efficiency. Zara watched him select items she had never seen before, advanced scanning devices, compact explosives, and weapons that looked far more sophisticated than standard colonial defense gear. "Where did you get such equipment?" she asked. "I have maintained certain preparations since retiring to civilian life." "Retiring from what?" Tom paused in his preparations and looked at her directly. "Special Operations Command. Human military division specializing in impossible missions." The words hit Zara like a physical blow. Special Operations Command was legendary throughout the galaxy. Their operatives undertook missions that other species considered fantasy rather than tactical planning. "You were a soldier," she whispered. "I was more than that. I was a specialist in situations where normal military approaches fail." "Why did you never tell me?" Tom's expression softened for a moment. "Because I wanted to leave that life behind. I came to Kepler-7 to build something peaceful with you. I hoped I would never need those skills again. But now you do. Now I do." As darkness fell, Tom prepared for his infiltration mission. Zara watched him apply camouflage compounds that seemed to bend light around his form. His movements took on a fluid quality she had never observed before, as if he were becoming part of the shadows themselves. "How long will the mission take?" Commander Wren asked. "Unknown. Ravik security rotations change every 4 hours. I need to study their patterns before making my approach. And if you do not return, continue evacuation procedures. Get the civilians off-world before reinforcements arrive." Tom turned to Zara, his eyes showing the first uncertainty she had seen all day. "I am sorry for not telling you the truth sooner." She reached out and touched his face, feeling the tension in his jaw muscles. "Will you come back to me?" "I will try." "That is not an answer." Tom was quiet for a moment. "I have survived 47 missions that other species considered impossible. I plan to make this number 48. He moved toward the edge of their position, then paused and looked back at her. "Zara, there is something else you should know about humans. We do not just endure difficult situations. We become more dangerous because of them." With that, he disappeared into the darkness, leaving Zara to wait and wonder what other secrets her husband had been keeping. Around her, the resistance forces settled in for a long night, knowing that their survival depended on one human doing what everyone else believed could not be done. The battle for Kepler-7 would be decided by human endurance, human adaptability, and the skills her gentle husband had hoped never to use again. As explosions began lighting the distant sky, Zara realized that her ordinary husband had never been ordinary at all.